We are going to be looking at the part 3 of the speaking test. Our particular subject that we're going to be looking at is food, but we're also going to be looking at the types of questions that come up in part 3, because there are some quite generic questions that you can get in lots of different situations. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, Jabba, you're going to be very hungry by the end of this hour. Okay, and we're going to look at the best way for you to structure your answer. Okay, sorry about that, Gulam. I don't know if anybody else is having that issue. Seems like everybody can hear me okay. Maybe leave and rejoin, or just check your audio settings. Okay. So a little bit of information first of all on the speaking part 2. So as I'm sure you know, the subject is the same as the subject in part 2, but in this case, now it's what they call a discussion. It's not really a discussion, but the thing is that you are speaking on abstract topics, not on personal topics. Okay, so it's very important that you answer in a general way. It's a bit more like when you're doing the essays, you're giving opinions, you're giving examples, you're giving reasons for why you think that. Okay. So that's one of the most important things. Just before we move on, I just want to tell you, I think some of the mistakes that I've found people making recently with the part 3. One is answering questions personally rather than generically. So for example, if the examiner says to you, why do people prefer going to supermarkets than local shops, you know, don't say, well, I prefer going to supermarkets because. Yeah, that's not generic, that's not abstract, that's the wrong way to answer the question. Okay. Another mistake people make is they give a very general answer. So the more specific you are, the more precise your answer is to the question, the better your mark is going to be. Okay. One other thing, make sure you're not using linking phrases that are only for writing. You know, things like furthermore, moreover, in addition. We don't really say these, you know, we write them, but they're a bit too formal. Exactly, Alexis, they're too formal for the writing. For the speaking, it doesn't sound natural. So make sure you're using things like besides, on top of that, apart from that. I'd say those kind of, you know, more informal, more colloquial expressions. Okay. So let's have a look at an example. So that's the kind of way that the examiner would generally introduce the part 3. It's part of the instructions, so they always say the same thing. Okay, and then they will talk probably about 5 or 6 questions. They usually try and get into the part 3. Okay, so what we want to look at now and focus on is the kinds of questions you get in part 3. So remember, they are not going to be personal questions. They are going to be generic questions. They're going to be abstract questions. So if we look at the first picture, that's kind of, we're seeing a picture of healthy food. So what kinds of questions do you think the examiner might ask you in part 3 related to food and health? Anyone, can you give me some example questions? Okay, you could ask about which foods are nutritious. Now remember, Noah, it's got to be not personal, yeah? Okay, they might ask about organic food. Okay, remember guys, focus on it not being personal. A lot of you are writing up personal questions. Yeah, which foods are healthy? Okay, yes, do you know about the Mediterranean diet? That's a great one. Asking about vegetarian food, if that's healthy, why some people have a special diet. Sumnin, that's great. Yes. Public health, very good. That's excellent. Yeah. Yeah, fast food as opposed to homemade food, diversity in the diet. Hey, okay, very good. So remember, they're not going to be asking about you. They're going to be asking about the difference. It's a very good point, Erina. A very common question in the part 3 is for you to compare, you know, what was people's diets like in the past compared to now? Did people have healthier diets in the past than now, in your opinion? Okay. So the next question is about the next picture is about restaurants. What kind of questions do you think the examiner might ask you about restaurants? Remember, they can't be personal. Okay, Neo, hi, Neo. Yeah, so it could be the quality of the food. You don't have to agree with the examiner. No, absolutely not. Okay, the content of your answer is not important. It's the language and it's how you structure it. Yeah, so why do people go to restaurants? Yeah, what might be some famous restaurants in your country? Yeah, comparing normal restaurants with luxury ones. Why do we go to certain restaurants in certain occasions? Comparing restaurant food and home food. Okay, also comparing now and the past. That's great. Different cuisines, Hanif. Okay, very nice one, Gamzo. Oh, well, the decor or the decorations, is that an important aspect of restaurants? Okay. All right, very good. So we're really getting onto the more general questions here. Okay, yeah, you could talk about the health of the food in restaurants. You could talk about things like staff, service, you know, what do people look for in a restaurant? What's important to them? That kind of thing. Okay. So the next one is about supermarkets, or maybe about shopping for food. Okay, that's great, Mirai. Why do people like to go to fancy restaurants? Okay, so what about shopping for food? Okay, exactly. Why do people go to supermarkets, Srinivas? Comparing supermarkets and local markets, Neo, that's great. Yeah, absolutely. Talking about advertising for food, that's really good. Okay, changes in shopping habits, Alexis, that's a great one. Quality is very good. Yeah, comparing, again, you could compare shopping online, things like that. Okay, very nice, Ajira. What do people look for before selecting the foodstuffs? Okay, so yeah, lots of comparisons, I think, there between supermarkets and other kinds of food, or comparisons between the, you know, the past and the present. Very good. Yeah, Ali Kalantari, packaging might be, you know, talking about the environment, might be things like that. Yeah. Okay. And okay, the last picture, we're looking at agriculture. So oh, very nice visual. Food wastage, very important. Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, so Monica Lamier, we're talking about biotechnology, Caramula irrigation, very good. So yeah, those kind of aspects. Maybe talking about the use of fertilizers and pesticides, guys. Yes, very good. Modern technology used in agriculture, pros and cons. Yeah. Okay. Does it play an important role in our life, Bhupender? That's great. Things to do with farming. Okay, so we're really getting the ideas there. So, you know, those could be, you know, related to food, those 4 areas, any of those 4 areas you could be asked about in the part 3. Okay, and normally you will be asked on 2 different subjects. So, you know, you've got to think quite broadly about, you know, in this case, health, restaurant, shopping, and agriculture, all being possible part 3 subjects. Okay. All right. Yes, very nice one, Debbie. I like that. Yeah. Okay, so what we're going to look at now, again, a little bit more focused on the difference between the part 1 questions and the part 3 questions. Okay, so again, personal question, what kind of food do you like? Very common question in part 1. They're not going to ask you that in part 3, and you shouldn't answer with your own personal opinion. Okay, So basically, in that case, for example, what are popular foods in your country? Or, you know, are the kinds of foods that are popular now the same as what they were 20 years ago? Okay. So yes, you can talk generic, you can talk about the typical foods, typical dishes in your country. So yes, exactly, Alexis. In this case, we're just describing, you would describe maybe a couple of common dishes, typical dishes, popular dishes in your country. Okay. Or maybe, yeah, traditional food, Vishal, that you have in your country. Okay. So again, here we've got a part 1 type question. And how would you rephrase that to make it more of a part 3 question? You think of something about restaurants and choice that would be more general. Any ideas? Okay, perfect, Alexis. How do people choose which restaurant to go to? Okay, what are the features of a good restaurant? Very nice, exactly. Yeah, what do people look for in restaurants? Exactly. Why do people go to different restaurants for different occasions? Yeah, very good. So, you know, what makes a good restaurant? That's the kind of thing. Yeah, and yeah, you would talk about things like ambience, the quality of the food. All right. So that's exactly right. Okay, again here, part 1 question. Do you prefer eating in a restaurant or cooking at home? Oh, very nice language, Shane. Signature dishes, that's very good. So what would be a more appropriate part 3 question in this case? Okay, we're gonna, what would we be? We've got a kind of comparison. Yeah, so why do people go out to restaurants? Okay, what do people pay more attention to, Shahana? That's nice. Is eating out more popular than cooking at home, Michelle? Exactly. Which one do people prefer? Yeah, in your country, which is more popular? Absolutely. So some kind of, what's the difference between eating in a restaurant or cooking at home? Yeah. Okay. Again, quite common, you know, is it becoming more popular to eat in restaurants, less popular to eat in restaurants? That kind of comparison between the past and now. Okay. All right. That's great. Yeah, very good. Okay. So again, as somebody said, which is more popular in your country? Okay. All right, so again, here we've got a kind of comparison. So in part 1, they might say, has your taste in food changed since you were a child? So how might that work as a part 3 question? What would work in a more general way? Okay, yeah, exactly, Taeyong. How food has changed. Yes, okay, Chris, if you're talking about the restaurant cooking at home, the financial aspect. Okay, has the quality of food changed, Sarana? Okay, do they like the same things they used to like 10 years ago, Akim? That's very good. Okay. Do they crave, okay, very good. So does your, do people's tastes change? It's just a more general one between being a child and being an adult. So again, it's a comparison between children and adults, yeah, okay. And again, comparing the past with nowadays, okay. Okay, good. So yeah, again, how has the type of food people eat changed over the last 50 years? Okay, that's a nice one, Anna, as well, talking about how the packaging of food has changed, maybe talking about how the advertising of food has changed. Yeah, okay. Great questions, very, very good. Okay. Next one is, what will you have for dinner tonight? So that's clearly a very personal question, but if you think about it, the idea is that we're looking at the future. Okay. You can speak on, you only really need to speak on one side, Anish, to be honest. You give your opinion and then back up your opinion, but it is also possible to look at both, yeah. Okay, what do people prefer? Yeah, that's true. I think they're focusing a little bit more on the future aspect of this. in terms of the part 3. Okay, well, you're focusing on the dinner. Okay, what if we thought about the future of food? Forget about dinner, okay? What if you were talking about the future and food? Okay. Okay, I think they're talking about, yeah, how it would change. Okay, good, Sophia. So maybe, do you think in the future everybody will be vegetarian? Do you think in the future everybody will eat in restaurants? Will we all be eating pills rather than real food? Okay. Okay, I think it's a very good idea. Okay. Okay, fast food take over. Yeah, exactly. How will people's eating habits change in the future? What's going to be more popular? Okay, very good. Pot roast be taken over by fish and chips? I hope not. And the last one is, what do you think about fast food? So if we talk about fast food, what might be going to a very likely question if the topic is food? Okay, so how asking about the health or otherwise, how is it viewed, Michelle? Very nice. What do people think about it in your country? That's great. Yeah, talking about taxes. Yeah, that's very good. Yeah. Or again, maybe prefer, the preferences of traditional food and fast food. Okay. So here we've got a statement that the examiner makes, and then you have to agree or disagree with it. Okay. Yeah, or talking about fast food and health would probably be the most likely one. Okay, so when you're practicing for your speaking, make sure that you're thinking in a general way, in an abstract way for the part 3. You can use yourself as an example, within it, but you should always start with a more general opinion, a more general reason. Okay. So we're going to look at some answers in a moment, Pramod, okay? So as I was saying before, question types. So obviously you can be asked about a whole range of topics, although there are some topics which do come up very, frequently, like technology, the environment, education. But whatever the topic, it's very common for the type of question to be the same. And we had a look at some of those different types just now. So describing things, what are the typical foods in your country, for example? Explaining the reason for something is another one. Clearly giving your opinion on a topic, or agreeing or disagreeing with a statement that the examiner has made. Comparisons, past, present, town, country, men, women, now, future, very, very common. You can use a personal example, Saraswati, but you shouldn't start with a personal example. You should come to that afterwards, okay? Yeah, as I said, past and present, and speculating, so looking forward to the future. How are these things going to change in the future, okay? Yeah, that's quite a good question, Shane. Basically, it's up to the examiner to be responsible for the timing, okay? And they are, they're very, very closely monitored on that. So you don't really have to worry about that. You should just give a good, solid answer. In part 3, that's probably going to be 4 or 5 sentences. If you talk a bit longer, the examiner will probably just stop you and ask another question. That's not necessarily a bad thing. That's just because the examiner has to ask a certain number of questions in every part 3. So don't be concerned if they stop you, that's about them, that's not about you, okay? So, let the examiner control the time. You just have to, give as a good solid answer. 4 or 5 sentences would be good, okay? We're going to be looking at that in a moment, Anish, okay? We're going to look at the structure, so don't worry about that, okay? So these are the same questions that we just looked at. So we're just going to say what type of question they are, okay? It's very unlikely, Debbie. They are general questions. Again, preparation's very important. The same kind of topics come up. Read about those topics, find vocabulary on those topics, you know, try, you know, that's part of your preparation. Yes, definitely giving an opinion. Second one is, what are we doing in the second one? Yeah, okay, very good. So we're comparing two things. In the third one, we are the different kinds. Yes, so this is past and present. So comparing 50 years ago with now. Okay, next one is giving reasons. Yeah, okay. Next one is simply describing. Yeah, it's quite a common question, just a simple description of something. And then finally we have, yeah, you're already there, speculate. So remember, it's quite a common question to ask about how you think things will be in the future. Okay, so whatever the topic, you know that these are the kinds of questions that the examiner is going to ask. And then, you know, there are certain phrases, introductory phrases that you can use, which, you know, will help you structure your answer. They also give you like a couple of seconds to think about what you're going to say, which is always helpful. So we're going to look at some of those phrases now. Very important to use these kinds of introductory phrases, okay? Because, you know, as I was saying at the beginning, if you give a very kind of general answer, it's not very clear, and the examiner is probably going to mark you down, okay? So if you think about the marking criteria, the first one, it's not just fluency, it's fluency and coherence, okay? Everybody focuses on fluency, but coherence is just as important. If your answer is not well structured, if it's not easy for the examiner to follow it, and if it's not precise to the question, you're going to lose marks in the fluency and coherence section, okay? So do think about that as well, all right? And the way we do that is to use these, what we call signposting expressions or linking expressions or cohesive devices. That just show what we're doing, okay? So we're giving a reason. I think it's because, okay? Another way of giving a reason, that's the main reason. Makes it much easier for the examiner to get a clear idea of what you're saying. Yeah, it's a nice logical progression through your answer. Part of what the examiner is looking for, part of what is in the band descriptors, is a well-developed answer. Okay, and we're going to look at how to do that in a minute. Yeah, you can do that. That's quite a nice way to start, Saswati, and it's quite natural for people to do that, to kind of repeat the question, or, you know, so what do I think about whether, you know, this is unhealthy or not? Well, you know, this is what I think. Yeah, and it gives you a little bit of an introduction to that. Okay. So these are the same 6 types of questions that we looked at. I'm going to give you some signposting expressions, and you tell me 1 to 6. So if you just put the number, it's easier. So what would be the first one? Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Yes. Okay, so this is when the examiner has given you a statement and asked whether you agree or disagree with it. Okay. What about the next one? Oop, yeah, most of you there with, that's 5. Okay, so you're describing something. Okay. All right, what about the next one? Yes, perfectly fine to disagree. Really, that is not an issue at all. Please don't think you have to agree with the examiner. Yes, so clearly this is describing the trend, the change in time. Okay, next one. Okay, yeah, absolutely. So clearly we're talking about the future here. All right, the next one would be, okay, very good. Lots of comparative phrases, comparatives, superlatives you're going to want to be using for that, yeah. Next one is, okay, very good. Clearly we're giving a reason. What about the next one? Yeah, it's more about the speculation. Yes, it is opinion, but you know, this is a nice one to use. Yeah, exactly, with the will. So, you know, I'm convinced that, I'm sure that, I doubt that, it's likely that. So, you know, these kind of expressions work very well when you're, yeah, I reckon is a really nice thing to say because it's nice and informal. Okay, what about the next one? Because, yeah, okay, so again, we're giving a reason here after because. Okay, what about the next one? Yeah, okay, some key differences. Nice use of the word key there as well. Then the next one would be, okay, absolutely, describing. Next one would be, okay, yeah, past and present. And then finally, okay, good. So a tentative agreement. So you're kind of, you know, between the two sides there. Okay. So, you know, all of these expressions that we looked at, you know, they're not about food. You could use those in any kind of topic based on the kind of question that the examiner asks you. So, you know, really try and use these introductory phrases to give a good solid structure to your answer. Make it as easy for the examiner as possible. Yeah. Don't make him have to struggle. It's just the same as the writing. If they go through it and they go, oh, you know, that's not the response you need. You need it to just be very easy for the examiner to just go through the test. Okay. So now let's look at structuring and elaborating your answer, as someone was saying. So we've got an opinion question here. Okay. I would look, Saswati, as many different questions as possible. I wouldn't necessarily write out answers because that can get a bit, you know, you end up then maybe trying to remember stuff. But I would definitely look at all the different topics and, you know, think of what would I say in that situation. Maybe just make a couple of notes. Yeah, not writing it out, but yeah, the more preparation you do, the better it is. The less likely you're going to be surprised during the exam. Okay. So yes, this is an opinion essay. So we've got here a nice little mnemonic to try and remember how you can structure your answers. Okay. So answer the question, first of all, using those phrases that we've looked at. So recognizing the type of question it is and using the appropriate phrase to introduce your answer. Okay. Explain why. That's always relevant. Give a specific example. Could be an example from your country, from your city, from your profession. That's totally fine. Something you've read, maybe, that's fine. You can make it up if you want. That's not a problem. Okay. You can then also give a, you know, the other side, what other people might think about this. And then you can just kind of bring it together. Okay, so these are possible things that you can do. You don't have to do all of them for every answer, but that, you know, does give you a well-developed answer, basically. Certainly the first three, I would suggest that you do. Okay, consequences are another possibility, something else that you might want to write. Okay. So let's have a look at an example of doing that. Okay. So first of all, you answer the question. As everybody said, it was an opinion. So yes, Monica, so I agree to some extent. So you're not coming down too heavily on one side or the other. And then you explain why. So I agree to some extent. Simple joining word. Yeah, because I think. Okay. So still looking at your opinion. Okay, there is far too, very good. So too much sugar in the food today. Okay, so that's your reason for banning it. Okay, so then you give an example. So some fizzy drinks have over how many spoonfuls, teaspoonfuls? 500. We got 1 and we got 500. It's somewhere in the middle. Oh, somebody's been here before. It's 40, which I think is enough, actually. 500 would certainly be enough, but yes, I think possibly the worst thing you can do is have fizzy drinks. Yeah? So again, there you got a very specific example talking about fizzy drinks. Okay, so that's really nice. But then you might say exactly on the other hand, well, you know, but on the other hand, people should be free to make their own decision. Okay. They should be free to eat what they like. What's the missing? Even if it's really unhealthy. So regardless of the health factor, personal choice. Yeah, that's another possible way of thinking about it. And then if you want, it's not maybe necessary, but if you want, you can kind of summarize. So you could say, okay, that's very nice, Ike. That's exactly right. To conclude's a bit formal. Okay, so I would say, so yeah, overall, in the end is quite a nice one. In the end, ultimately, those are quite nice. Yeah, generally, basically is a very nice one. Things like basically, in a nutshell, or yeah, all in all, they're very good. Okay. I would avoid anything like to conclude or in conclusion or to sum up. Last but not least is very nice. All things considered, Alexis, is fantastic. That's a really, really good thing to put. Yeah. Okay. Very, very natural, very much spoken English. Okay. So yes, I think fast food is unhealthy. What's the missing word? Okay, well, yet or but would work. Yeah, but either of those would work. However, okay, also, I don't think it should be banned. Okay, so nice, solid answer there. It's not going on forever. You're not speaking for 1 minute, but you've got your opinion, you've got a reason, you've got an example, and you've kind of, you know, wrapped it up together at the end. The good thing about the summarizing is it's then clear to the examiner that you've come to the end of your answer, and then they can ask the next one. Pramod, if you were writing it, it would have to be but, because it's joining 2 sentences together. But if you're speaking, I mean, it, you know, obviously it doesn't matter because, you know, it's a bit more relaxed. Okay. And either of them would work. So that would be fine. Oh, mind you, that's a very nice expression. Very nice. Yeah, things like all things considered, mind you, these are really good things to use in your speaking. Yeah. Okay. Another thing, this is just another mistake that I've heard people making recently, which is finishing your answer, but actually your voice is going up at the end of the answer, and it sounds like you're going to say more. Okay, so just make sure when you come to the end of your answer that your voice goes down. Okay, otherwise the examiner is waiting for you to say more. You've finished, all gets a bit awkward, nobody's talking. So yeah, tone is very important. So just try and remember that it's a very good way of signifying that it's the end of your answer, is just to go down. Okay, the end, basically. Okay, if you go up, the examiner is going to expect you to say something else. Yeah, basically. Okay, so let's have another one. So this is giving reasons. Yeah. Yeah, pitch is very important. That's my idea. I would say something like, well, anyway, that's what I think, you could say. I think that's my idea. It doesn't sound quite right. I wouldn't say thank you, Adiola, at the end of each answer. It sounds a bit odd, okay? And don't say that's all, please. That just sounds really, really rude if you say that, yeah? That's it is also is going to sound a bit rude. It's not necessary, okay? Either have something, a summary, like you said, like we had in the last one, or just make sure that your voice is going down. I think, in my opinion, is a bit more like a written phrase than a spoken phrase for me. I don't think I would ever say, in my opinion. You can say, for me, as for me, personally speaking, I'd say, or yeah, I'd say. That's always a very good one, yeah, I think. In my case is when you're talking about a personal experience rather than a personal opinion. So in some cases that would work, but why not? Yeah, and fillers is very natural. You know, pauses are part of intonation. You don't want to be just running through your answer. It's almost impossible for the examiner to do that. So, you know, there's going to be, you know, pausing at the end of the sentences, maybe a few fillers. That's quite natural. It's only if you have a bit of a gap that, you know, then it seems like the examiner's like, well, it's hard to remember what you said. So yeah, you've got to keep the flow going, but part of keeping the flow going is using the occasional fillers. Yes, because you're processing. I'm doing it at the moment. Yeah, that's totally and utterly natural. Yeah. It's when the examiner feels like you are looking for vocabulary or looking for the right grammatical structure, and that's why you're pausing. That's when you've got a problem, okay? And it's usually fairly obvious to the examiner if you're pausing for content or if you're pausing to try and remember something, okay? Well, it's fine, you've been very busy. That's really good. I wouldn't be formal. It's a spoken test. It's a conversation. You know, try and not make it painful for the examiner to do it. You know, just relax. You would have to be, in terms of the grammar, it's, you know, to get a 7, you're going to have to be using complex sentences. Yeah, you're not going to get a 7 if you're only using simple sentences. And they, you know, they would be looking for a kind of a range of sentences as well. So, you know, maybe a passive, different tenses. Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right, Chad. To as much as it's possible, and I really do appreciate that doing a speaking exam is very stressful. I've done it myself, so, you know, I do understand that. But as much as you can, yeah, as much as you can relax and kind of just have a conversation with the examiner. And trust me, you know, at the end of the examination, they are not going to remember every little tiny thing you said, okay? But they are going to have an overall impression. And generally that overall impression is going to be, was that really painful and difficult? Or did that just kind of flow quite nicely and it was all quite easy and I feel quite relaxed at the end of it? Yeah. Okay. So, you know, that's going to be the most important thing. You might make a couple of grammar mistakes. They might not even remember that, but they will remember if it was hard work. So don't make it hard work for the examiner. Okay. Yeah, they record the conversation, but that is only in case there is an issue with the score and some other examiner needs to listen to the recording, okay? If there's no issue, it will not be listened to again, okay? They grade you immediately after you leave the room. Immediately after you leave the room, okay? All right. Okay, I'm going to move on a bit now, and then I will come back to some more questions, okay? But yes, you can think, it's quite natural. Again, if you're looking for content, that's okay. If you're looking for grammar or vocabulary, that's not okay, okay? So let's just go through this a bit quickly. So you're giving some reasons. Yes, yeah, normal conversation. Try and see the examiner as a normal person that you're having the conversation with. That is going to make it a lot easier for the examiner, okay? And if it's easier for the examiner, they will give you a good mark at the end, okay? Don't worry about how you dress. Don't wear sunglasses, okay? I did have one candidate who came in and sat with sunglasses on, which did make me very, very reluctant to give him a good score because I consider that to be very rude. Other than wearing sunglasses, it really doesn't matter what you wear, okay? It wasn't, trust me, Jabber, and that wouldn't be good, yeah? If you don't know a meaning of the word, okay, so in part one, the examiner can only repeat the question, okay? They cannot change the question in any way. In part three, they can explain something if you don't understand, okay? So they're not being difficult. Basically, part one, they have no choice but to repeat the question, but they will try and judge it a bit more by part three. Part three, they've got a good idea of your level, so they're going to adjust the difficulty of their questions according to how you've performed before part three. You can ask them to repeat it, they will repeat it, that's all they can do. Just say hi. You don't have to shake their hands, just say hi, trying to smile when you come in, you know, that's the most important thing, okay? Okay, I'm going to go through that in a minute, Kendi, okay? It's informal, okay? It is a speaking test. They are grading how well you would integrate with native speakers, you know, if you were studying in a UK university, for example, okay? You have a seminar, you have a study group, you're chatting to the other students. How well does that go? Yeah? All right. So let me move on. So why do people go to different restaurants? So I would say that it depends on the occasion. Okay, so you're giving your opinion, first of all. Good point, Jabba. Remind me to come back to that at the end because that is important. Okay, because, so give the reason. So people go to, yeah, maybe different or certain or various or something like that, yeah? Give an example. So for instance, good. Instance is nicer in the speaking than for example, yeah? If you're celebrating a special occasion, like a birthday or, yeah, anniversary or something like that, then you might go to a more, okay, good, yeah, fancy, formal, sophisticated, something like that, yeah, okay. Fancy is a good word to use with restaurants, okay. Then you might talk about the other side, so a less formal occasion. Yeah, so however, yet, on the other hand, you know, having said that, mind you, as somebody said before, if someone just wants to grab a bite to eat, okay, more convenient to go to the fast food place, okay? So we've got some nice expressions there, like grabbing a bite to eat, which are nice colloquial expressions, okay? As a matter of fact, Gitanshi, that's a very nice one to use as well. And then you might say, so basically, which is a good way to summarize, okay? Or overall, or ultimately, or that being said, okay? The choice of restaurant, or the type of restaurant, depends on the person and the situation. Okay. So we have some other examples, but we're not going to go through these now, but you can have a look at this again. You know, think about what you would say, maybe make some notes. Like I said, the more examples you've looked at, the better prepared you are to, you know, to answer whatever comes up, and, you know, to not, you know, not be shocked by what it comes. However is okay. I would, you know, you use however when you're speaking. It's things like furthermore, you know, in my opinion, those kind of things. To sum up, they're a bit too formal. Okay. So remember that structure and organization is important, as well as fluency for that first one. So try and have those different, you know, aspects to your answer, and make sure that you're introducing it with some of those phrases that we looked at before. So, you know, it's clear to the examiner where you are going. Okay. Jabba's question about maneuvering the answer or the question. Yes, I think you can do that, but you need to make it clear to the examiner what you're doing. If you just start speaking about something that's a slightly different topic, he may think that you haven't understood the question, okay? But, you know, you might say, they might ask you a question about, I don't know, related to the countryside, something going on in the countryside. And you might say, well, you know, to be honest, I don't really have any experience of being in the countryside, so I don't really know very much about that. But what I can do is tell you, like, you know, how I think this happens, or what happens in the city. Then you talk about the city. So yes, it's very good, a nice technique, strategy to get the answer, you know, more into what you want to talk about, is maneuvering it, but just make it clear what you're doing. You don't want the examiner to think that you've misunderstood the question, okay? Because then they're going to stop you, and then it's all going to get really confusing, and that. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. You can lie, nobody knows, make up information, just like the writing, you know, research, data, statistics, anything like that. You know, who knows? I don't know if there's 40 teaspoons in a fizzy drink, to be honest. Yeah. Okay, so that's the end of 5. You're fixed on the 500, Alexis, aren't you? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry about that. I didn't notice that. Okay. Just before we go through any more questions, just a few links here for you. So remember that there is a service, it's a paid service, where you can get personal feedback on your speaking. So you do a whole mock test, and you'll get feedback, immediate feedback and written feedback. And you can also get feedback on your writing. You can do a task 1, a task 2, or both, okay? You can also see lots of videos and tips and ask questions on the YouTube channel. So if I haven't answered your question today, and there are a lot of questions, you can go to the YouTube channel and put your question in, and somebody will respond to your question, okay? And you can just go to either Integrate Education or IELTS online tests. So we do have, you know, a range of resources for you, okay? So let me try, we've got 8 minutes left. I will try and answer the questions that I can. I'm going to look in the Q&A because somebody's, there shouldn't be, I'm not aware of any change to the IELTS. They make very few changes very occasionally. And, you know, so that's not something. And when you register for your IELTS test, you will get a booklet which will explain everything, okay? Could somebody put the links up in chat? Because I'm not able to paste into chat when I'm hosting. we'll end up losing the connection. So if there's somebody who could please put up the YouTube channel or the online one. Yeah. Okay. Yes, eye contact is very important. Yeah, eye contact, smiling, trying to be natural. That's great, Ricky. Thank you very much. For everyone else, can anyone else just keep putting it in? Okay. I think that the Cambridge Grammar, well, actually the vocabulary book particularly is very useful because it does give you a really good range of vocabulary and expressions on those topics that tend to come up regularly in the IELTS. So I would certainly get the vocabulary. The grammar book is really going to depend on what your level of grammar is. Obviously, if you have very good grammar, it's not really necessary. You just go to Amazon, or you go to, if you have a bookstore, and just put Cambridge vocabulary for IELTS, okay? There is also a Cambridge Common Mistakes at IELTS, which is also a very useful book. And there is also a book on collocations and phrasal verbs. Okay, so there is a good range of support books from Cambridge, from IELTS, as well as the actual practice tests. Okay, oh, Ricky, good luck, good luck, good luck, good luck. Yeah, okay, I really, really wish you best luck. Okay. Let me ask, how many questions would the examiner ask in part 1 and part 3? Part 1, it will probably be 7 or 8 questions. Part 3, you will probably be asked 4 or 5 questions. Okay, they do like to get a good range of questions, which is why they, you know, they will cut you off if you're talking too long on one subject, because they will want to talk about something else. Yeah. Okay. Let's have a look. How can we answer if we don't know anything about the topic? Okay, well, this is part of your preparation. It shouldn't be a difficult topic. Yeah, they're all very general topics, but it's always useful to do, you know, watch documentaries, read articles about these kinds of topics. It will give you vocabulary, it will give you ideas. It's going to be helpful for the writing as well, because the same kinds of topics come up in the writing as in the speaking. So, you know, reading and listening around the topics is very useful. And, you know, looking at as many different examples as possible and thinking about, you know, what would I say in that situation? And if you don't know what to say, then you need to do some research or some preparation and find something to say. Yeah. Okay. The topics, again, if you get the vocabulary book, the topics are in there. If you go on any, you know, website related to IELTS, they will usually tell you the topics that, you know, come up. Okay. So let me have a look. What's the difference between the masters and general tests? I think you mean the academic and general tests. Academic is generally if you're studying in an English-speaking country. General training is usually if you are emigrating to work. But the most important thing to do is to check with the person that you are applying with, or the organization that you are applying with, because they will tell you what you need to do. Okay, that's the most important thing. Okay. We must talk about, so Nurkin, in part 3, we must talk about something in general, but can we support with our own opinion? Yes, you're going to be giving your own opinion, but you shouldn't just talk about yourself. You should talk about generally what happens in that situation. So talk more generally, and then you can talk about your own experience after that. Galaxy S9, do you need to speak in the third person for task 2 and 3? Okay, task 2, Galaxy S9, is also personal. So you will be talking about yourself in part 2. Part 3, yeah, well, yeah, you're going to be saying, well, people, or a lot of people, or some people, or most people. Those are the kinds of things you're going to be saying in part 3. Okay. Yeah, this presentation will be up on the Facebook channel tomorrow. I think it goes up tomorrow. Okay. So you'll have everything that's here. Okay. Okay, we do have other, so Mohammed, we will have other webinars about part 1. So, you know, just keep checking the upcoming webinars as it says here, and then you should be able to find out what's happening. Okay. I'm really sorry, guys. I'm going to have to finish there. You know, I know there's a lot of questions. If you have a question, do please put it up on the Facebook page. It will get answered. Okay. Will Jamie be back from Taiwan? He will be back in 3 weeks. Okay. He is working in Taiwan. I'm looking forward to him coming back as well. So best of luck, everybody. I know some of you have got your test coming up very soon. So I do really, really wish you the very, very best with that. Yeah. I'll check about that, Shazad. Okay, I will check. The recording is up on Facebook, guys. Okay, best of luck. I will have to go. Thank you very, very much for joining the webinar. And I will see you next week at the same time if you're coming to that webinar. Yeah. Yeah, take care, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Take care, everyone. Good luck. Yeah, see you next week. Okay, how do I stop now? Bye, everybody.